Welcome to Design to Thrive with Dr. Brooke. I'm Dr. Brooke Silverhorn, your podcast host. Here we share wisdom for women to create legacy for daughters through conversations around health and life, family and faith, rooted in nervous system healing, embodied living, and God-designed rhythms. In today's episode, we are going to talk about 2 more lessons that I learned through my healing journey from a thyroid cancer diagnosis. Whenever an individual is experiencing some sort of health challenge, typically they will have labs done. And I was no different. I had someone say to me, "Hey, Brooke, your thyroid looks enlarged." And I thought, okay, well, I can do my due diligence, get some labs done. I am a healthcare practitioner. I can do that on my own without the help of other practitioners. And so I got labs done, and specifically thyroid labs. Now, if you have been to just a general practitioner, a lot of times their first go-to for a thyroid lab is your TSH, which is not actually a thyroid marker. It is upstream from thyroid hormones. It signals the production of thyroid hormones, but it is not actually produced by the thyroid. It is produced by the pituitary gland. So that's one challenge that I have seen, especially for women who are struggling with energy, are showing signs of either hypo or hyperthyroid. And they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, okay, let's run some labs. And they do, your complete blood panel, and then they'll do TSH, but they don't do any other thyroid lab markers. So that's one challenge that I have seen. Now, when I had my thyroid labs done, I did TSH, T3, T4, several different markers. I even did thyroid antibodies. The one thing that I missed was there's more than one thyroid antibody marker test that you can do, and I only requested one of them. And so looking back, that was one thing that I missed when I first did these labs. But the results came back and they were normal. They were normal for your average woman, and they were definitely normal for a woman who is pregnant. And so I just was like, okay, well, things look normal. And I didn't feel like there was anything out of balance. Again, maybe because of the healthy lifestyle and the fact that I was getting adjusted regularly, maybe those things kind of overrode the fact that there were issues going on with my health and my body. But at the time, it just wasn't apparent. So I had normal labs. And then, of course, you've heard the story in previous podcasts. I gave birth. And then my focus turned to my daughter's own health and well-being because she was showing signs of eczema. And we went on that health journey there. And then finally, I took that look in the mirror and recognized there's something going on. And so I sought help from a thyroid specialist. And I should add, he's a medical doctor, but is more holistically minded. So a holistic thyroid specialist. And when I saw Dr. Brooke, he said, okay, labs are normal. Let's check this one marker that you missed. And we're also going to do an ultrasound. So you've heard that part of the story. What I have learned, again, in this digging into understanding the body, understanding thyroid health, and in my own healing journey is that there are 2 things. What is considered normal is really the average of norms from an unhealthy population. So when they take blood labs from the thyroid, your CBCs, your liver panel, all of these markers that they test from your blood, the first is that it is an average, and it is an average of a society that in large eats a really bad diet, doesn't exercise, obesity is ever increasing. And so when we consider normal, I really don't like that word. Normal is actually just common. That does not mean optimal. So you can have normal labs And that doesn't mean that that is healthy. Normal may not actually be normal for you. So you could be walking around having normal labs, but they are actually not optimal for you. And you're experiencing all sorts of symptoms of dis-ease and dysfunction in your body. So for a lot of women, again, in my seeking answers about thyroid health and function, I saw a lot of women who were saying, yeah, I had no energy. I was losing my hair. I was gaining weight. I couldn't lose weight, all of these things. And my doctor just kept saying, your labs are fine. You're normal. It's fine. But then they sought out different perspectives and learned that, hey, I was depleted in these nutrients, and those things helped me to feel better, function better, even though my labs were normal. So one of the things I learned in that journey is that labs can lie to us. Now, are they lying, or is it just we need a different perspective? I will let you make the decision for yourself on that. But the second thing that I learned was that there is a completely different type of test that you can do to assess function in the body. And it has nothing to do with the actual tissues and cells in your body, but it has to do with the frequency that you are holding in your body. And for some people, this may be completely unfamiliar. And I hope you will lean into this conversation, because I think that it really speaks to how wonderfully made we are, how we are created with this divine design within us. So if we talk about quantum physics, I know we're going super deep in this one. Quantum physics basically says that everything in the universe is both particle and wave. And what that means is that everything in the universe has a frequency. We learned about frequency when we talk about sound and light, and those are the frequencies that we can perceive in the universe. We can see them, we can hear them, we can feel them. But then we also have learned about X-rays and MRI technology, and we learn about microwaves. And those are not things that we can necessarily see or feel, but we know that they are having some sort of impact because of that frequency in our world. So everything is a wave. And then what happens is that these particles in the universe are moving in a frequency. And when we focus our attention on it, that's when it appears as a particle or as a solid. So you might be wondering, like, how is this relevant to me in my life? Well, if you consider the fact that right now you're sitting here watching a video of me, and that video has been recorded in one place, and then its data is transferred into another place, and then it's pushed out to YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and clips of it are put on Facebook and Instagram. And then you're able to listen to or watch this states away on the other side of the planet. That is incredible. And on top of that, because of this particle wave dichotomy, everything that you perceive looks solid because you have focused your attention to it. But in reality, it's moving. It's constantly ebbing and flowing because of that wave aspect of the particle. So super cool. What I learned about bioenergy testing or frequency testing is that it can measure the wave resonance or frequency of the tissues in your body. And then that can tell us how your body is functioning. It can tell us if there is a resonance with something that is not optimal for your health, like a bacteria, virus, parasite, chemical. And so it's a completely different perspective on how your body functions. So here's the cool thing. When we learn about these frequencies, there is a researcher named David R. Hawkins. He is an MD, PhD, and he researched frequencies in relation to emotions. And he writes about this in several books. One that I have listened to is Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, but one that he is really well known for is Power versus Force. In these books, he talks about the vibrational frequency at different levels and what emotions that those frequencies match with. I will link a PDF version of the different levels of consciousness and their frequencies in the show notes. But one of the things is that these levels, these frequencies go from basically 0 to 1,000. And emotions like love and peace and joy are in the higher numbers, like 800 to 1,000, whereas anger and resentment and pride are in the lower numbers. So what this means is that we can decide what frequency our body is matching, and then that has an impact in how we live our lives, how our bodies function. So when I learned about bioenergy testing, the cool thing was that not only can you learn, hey, your organs are not vibrating in the frequency that they should be. You're resonating with this bacteria or parasite or virus. You're not resonating with these foods. Also, you are resonating with these specific emotions. And the majority of society tends to live in the world of 400 or lower. And the goal is that we would more consistently, more often be living in those higher frequencies because we are fully in alignment with what we are designed for. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. This sounds really woo-woo. And I will say, I thought some of the same things. But what I have come to discover is that our perception of the world and of God's creation is so much smaller than what it actually is. And so I have progressively become a little bit more woo-woo in how I view God's creation, because it is so much bigger and so much greater than what we could ever think or imagine. And what is cool is that even though it's what would be considered fringe science, there's some really cool research out there. One of them being Marasu Emoto's research, where he actually took water and he put words on the outside of the container that the water was in. And some of those words were love and joy and peace and very positive, uplifting, high frequency words. And then there were other jars that had words that were negative. And then he took water from those jars and froze it. And what happened was the crystals that were formed from the positive high frequency words were these beautiful crystals that you could see under the microscope. And then the water that had the negative low frequency words on them, the crystals were very jagged and ugly and not uniform and beautiful. And so it's really interesting because when we think about how so much of our body, more than 70% of our body, is made up of liquid. And then we compare that experiment with what we are made of, then you can see how frequency and words and the thoughts that we have hold such power over how our body expresses itself. So I know I have covered so much in this one short little episode, but what I want you to take away from it is, first of all, if you have something going on in your body that you are like, my doctor said my labs are normal, but I know something is not normal. I want you to keep going, keep trying, keep searching for answers. Know that you know your body more than anybody else. And if you feel like there is something that is out of balance, trust that instinct. Keep searching for answers. And then secondarily, frequency and the words that we say have such a huge impact in our overall health and well-being. And there are tests that can measure that and tell you how your body is functioning. I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast. And just remember, you are designed to thrive.